Monday is the final day for Georgians to register to vote in the Senate runoff elections on January 5th. The pair of races will determine which party controls the Senate next year. On Sunday, Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler and Democratic challenger Raphael Warnock faced off in their first debate of the runoff cycle. Loeffler attempted to cast Warnock as a radical and a socialist, while Warnock claimed Loeffler had failed to make any case for her re-election. The senator also sidestepped questions regarding President Trump's election loss, while Warnock said it was time to look forward.
You've just heard more lies from radical liberal Raphael Warnock, who wants to distract from his own words, calling police officers gangsters, thugs, bullies, and a threat to our children, saying that you can't serve God in the military, for his attacks on Israel. Everything is at stake in this election, the future of our country, not just the radical ideas of the left, but the radical candidates who would defund the police, who would stand by and attack our military and then withdraw funds that would support Chuck Schumer's defunding of our military by 25%.
Meanwhile, when it came to the other contest, Democrat Jon Ossoff took the stage solo. He answered questions next to an empty podium after his Republican opponent, Senator David Perdue, refused to participate. President Trump held a rally on behalf of the Republican candidate Saturday night. Despite his claims of election fraud, the president encouraged his supporters to turn out in January.
If you want to do something to them, I don't want to use the word revenge, but it is a certain revenge. To the Democrats, you show up and vote in record numbers. That's what you have to do.
He went on to encourage people to request absentee ballots. The state's Republican governor, Brian Kemp, has rejected a request from President Trump to call a special session to overturn the results of the November election. In a statement Sunday, Kemp said Mr. Trump asked him to choose a new slate of presidential electors for Georgia for when the Electoral College casts its official vote next week. He said a move like that is not an option under any law and would be considered unconstitutional. For more, let's bring in Adam Murphy and James Arkin. Adam is an investigative reporter with our Atlanta affiliate, WGCL, and James is a Senate campaign pro reporter for Politico. Welcome to you both. Adam, Georgia has just certified President-elect Biden's victory in the state for the third time. Are there any more challenges from the Trump campaign pending?
Well, we just found out today that Sidney Powell, who at one point was representing the Trump campaign, not anymore, but her lawsuit claiming there was a kraken and a major violation of fraud in the state of Georgia, that was dismissed here in the state of Georgia today as well. And as you pointed out, not only has the governor said that a special session in Georgia is not going to happen and is not able to happen because of state and federal law, but the lieutenant governor here, as well as the attorney general, have all supported that particular position.
Well, James, you have been interviewing Republican voters in Georgia. What are they saying about who won the presidential election, and how do they feel about voting in January?
Yeah, that's right. I was at both the vice president's event in Savannah on Friday and then President Trump's rally on Saturday evening. I talked with about 24 Georgia voters at those events, and they think that President Trump won the election, not just in Georgia, but just won the presidential election. They are 100% behind the president's false claims of voter fraud and have been following, what he's been saying about that and his accusations very closely. And they're very frustrated over it. And frankly, some of the voters that I talked to said that they thought the senators Perdue and Loeffler should be more vocal and more outspoken in support of the president. But they also told me that they are not taking part in this conversation that's happening online about boycotting the elections because of it. All the voters that I spoke to said they plan to turn out again on January 5th and sort of said we're not going to cut off our nose to spite our face. We're not going to not show up for these critical Senate elections just because we remain very frustrated about the outcome of the presidential election.
Well, Adam, President Trump spoke to Republican Governor Brian Kemp on Saturday shortly after calling him a, quote, enemy of the people. What did Governor Kemp have to say about the conversation?
Governor Kemp has said that all along he has said that he is doing everything he can to work with the president within his power. And he has made it very clear, again, that there's not a lot that he can do by law at this point in time as far as calling some sort of special election and changing the slate of presidential electors. So interestingly enough, Governor Kemp remains in support of President Trump and also is encouraging all Georgians to get out in this January 5th runoff and vote, saying that it's very important that all of the Trump supporters do come out to vote for Loeffler and for Perdue on January 5th. And again, the governor is standing behind the president, but making it very clear there's not a lot that can be done. And really the only option, viable option at this point in time for the president and his team is to continue with any further lawsuits that they may want to bring and just go through the judicial process.
Well, James, Georgia Republicans are still in an awkward spot when it comes to their messaging. They acknowledge that control of the Senate is on the line, but won't mention President-elect Joe Biden's victory. You wrote that it will be difficult to keep supporters engaged that way. Why?
Well, because the Senate can only be, control of the Senate can only be in jeopardy for Republicans if Joe Biden is going to take office on January 20th. Republicans currently have 50 seats secured for the next Senate. And so the only way that their majority is at risk in Georgia with these two races is if Vice President-elect Kamala Harris would be the one breaking ties in a 50-50 Senate if Democrats win both these races. And so the Republican senators are continuing to say that the majority is in line, that everything is at stake. And that was a message that you also heard from President Trump and Vice President Pence in the state this weekend. But again, they just sort of don't address the fact that that is only true in a situation where President Trump and Vice President Pence will no longer be in office. And so there's just a little bit of a paradox there that's going unaddressed. And some of the Republican operatives and strategists I've spoken to are worried that that will confuse voters and may depress turnout. Even just a little bit of depressed turnout for Republicans could be a problem on January 5th.
Well, Adam, after once again falsely claiming that he actually won the state of Georgia, a claim Senator Kelly Loeffler would not refute, President Trump encouraged Georgians to vote in the upcoming election. And Mr. Trump also called this race rigged. How is that impacting Republican get-out-the-vote efforts?
Well, I think at this point in time, the president has made it very clear that he wants all Republicans to come out. And there is a push, not just with the president, but the Republican Party in here to get the vote out. They know they have to get the vote out. Stacey Abrams has already said that they've registered some 1 million people that have actually requested absentee ballots or thereabouts. So there's a very large number of people there. I do want to point out an interesting development here. The president has also requested in the state of Georgia that there be a certification or a verification of the signature on the absentee ballots. And today, the Secretary of State's office said that they're going to be working with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and having them come in for a meeting tomorrow to actually look at about 18 cases or claims at this point of these absentee ballot signatures that are in question and making sure signatures match. And interestingly enough, the Secretary of State's office said that they were going to have the GBI look and have an expert look at the signatures to make sure they match up. But then when I checked with the GBI, they said they don't have a specialist that does this. So we're going to find out more about that part of the investigation into fraud here in Georgia tomorrow.
All right, curious to hear more about that. Adam Murphy, I know you have to get going. Thank you very much, Adam. James, let's continue the conversation here. Obviously, James, the people who showed up at President Trump's rally Saturday might be more motivated to vote come January. Tell us about Republicans' ground game efforts targeting those voters who may be less engaged.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a voter who's going to take the time to find out when the president is going to be in town and make the effort to go and to wait in line and to go through all the hassle of going to one of these events, you're probably someone who's more inclined to vote. And like I said, all of the voters that I spoke to at both the vice president's event and the president's event over the weekend told me that they were going to vote in the January runoffs. But some Republicans that I talked to say, well, of course, those are the voters that you would expect to vote. The ones that they're worried about are the ones who are less engaged, maybe not paying as close attention. And this is an election for all of the attention that it's garnering. It's on January 5th. It's right in the middle of the holiday season, right after the new year. And so it's just kind of an awkward time to get voters back out. And so Republicans are, going through the effort, spending an enormous amount of money, knocking on doors and reaching out to voters just to remind them, to make sure that they're aware of the election and to push them to come back out and vote, because turnout is going to be so critical. And, Democrats are doing the same thing. They've started knocking on doors again, canvassing their voters and having their voters request absentee ballots. And so Republicans are a little bit nervous about getting some of those voters who are paying less close attention back out. And that's where the ground game comes into effect. Not so much with the voters who are going to go see the president when he's in town, but with the voters who might be a little bit less engaged and paying a little bit less close attention.
Incredibly high political stakes. James Arkin for us. James, thanks very much.
Thank you.